I was recently reading a market research report by DMG Consulting, and they're basically an independent market research firm. And every couple of years, they do something really awesome. They release a speech analytics market report detailing kind of the state of the union, if you will, for speech analytics technology. And the report typically compares some product offerings from some of the leading speech analytics vendors. They share some best practices for implementing speech analytics solutions and expected market growth in the North American market, Asian market, Latin American market, et cetera. And they also share a customer rating from clients who are using these solutions for each vendor. So it's really a wealth of knowledge. As I was reading this market report, one of the things that really resonated with me was the fact that DMG Consulting actually highlighted the fact that there's a need for third-party consultants to kind of help organizations, be an advocate to organizations as they navigate the speech analytics implementation process. So, if you think about it, what's happening right now is that companies are basically have to pick a solution and make a substantial, financial and time investment and kind of hope for the best. There are a limited pool of qualified candidates in the job market right now, and there's no industry standard certification for speech analytics available. So organizations are kind of forced to sink or swim. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense because most organizations today are actually adopting their very first speech analytics solution. There are very few that maybe already have a solution and not satisfied and they want to get a more competitive one, but 9 times out of 10 it's their first time. So I always like to compare it to your first car buying experience. When you go and buy your first car, you might shop around with a few different dealerships, look at a couple of different brands to see what they have to offer. But you don't really know much about cars or financing or warranty coverage, all those important little details. I remember when I bought my first car, I was actually in the Marine Corps at the time. And, we had just come back from a deployment in Iraq, and, I was just a young kid with way too much money, and I had no previous experience with auto financing, with insurance policies or, any of the other critical pieces of information that would ultimately, help me determine which vehicle I actually needed. So if you think about the process of selecting a speech analytics vendor or a solution, right, there are a number of parallels we can draw to the experience of purchasing, your very first vehicle. Just from a high-level overview, right, there are tons of vendors that are popping up all over the place claiming to have, AI and machine learning, and that's all good and dandy, but being able to kind of differentiate between those is really important. So speech analytics technology within the contact center is still a relatively new player. It's still in the infancy stage, as many organizations are struggling to kind of find that initial return on investment. So because a lot of organizations just don't have that subject matter expertise or third-party consultant to kind of help them navigate the implementation process, right? They don't know any of the best practices for selecting a vendor or building a speech analytics team or a program to really operationalize the technology. And as a result, what we find is that they typically end up opting for the vendor's professional services, right? Which actually adds to the overall cost of the solution and pushes you consequently further away from that return on investment that you want to show to your stakeholders and your executive team. Even vendor solutions that boast like unsupervised AI and machine learning, right? They require a great deal of configuration and tuning to produce those meaningful results that you can act upon. The reality is that organizations have to have either an internal speech analytics team that they hire, or they're going to pay for professional services, or you're going to rely on the expertise of someone like Speech Analytics Group. So if you think back to the example of buying your car for the first time, I didn't know really anything about credit or financing or interest rates. I didn't know how to find the best car to suit my needs, right? I wasn't thinking about gas mileage or tag and title fees or insurance or anything like that. I just needed to get from point A to point B. And what we find is that many organizations that don't have a subject matter expert, during the implementation process to help compare vendor offerings based on what they're looking to accomplish with the solution, they end up with a solution that quote unquote, doesn't meet their expectations. They say, hey, they kind of sold us this thing, they sold us a dream, and it doesn't work the way, as intended. And our primary goal here at Speech Analytics Group, right, is to help organizations select and operationalize the best solution that fits their needs. Now, let's imagine you're buying your first car again. Let's revisit that analogy. And this time you have a parent, maybe your mom or dad or a friend or a trusted family member, right, who understands kind of the best practices when you're purchasing a vehicle to help guide you through that process. I know for a fact that I would have saved like a ton of time and money if I just had somebody there to kind of help, guide and protect me. Through that process, and here at Speech Analytics Group, right, we aspire to be that trusted advisor that organizations can reach out to in order to help them amplify, the voice of the customer and ultimately optimize the client experience. So, it really doesn't matter whether you're shopping, you're still at the stage of shopping around for speech vendors, or if you're conducting a proof of concept, or even if we're already using a speech analytics solution. Hey, that's awesome. Just be sure to stop by and have a conversation with us to make sure that you're getting the most value, out of the experience with the solution.